Captain Vex stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the star map floating in front of him. His 4 eyes moved across the glowing display, showing all the known systems in the galaxy. Every corner of space was marked with coalition ships except for one dark area. This empty zone was 50 light-years wide and completely off-limits to everyone. The bridge was full of activity as officers from many different alien species worked at their stations. Navigator Roth had crystal skin that sparkled under the lights. Communications Officer Blake had long tentacles that danced across his control panels. They all knew about the Forbidden Zone, but nobody talked about it much. "Captain, we are getting close to the boundary," Roth said with worry in her voice. Vex felt his mandibles click together. In his 40 years of military service, he had never seen a single ship return from human space. Not one vessel had ever come back to tell what happened inside that dark region. The Coalition had made strict rules about staying away from humans after the first expeditions disappeared 30 years ago. "Sir, we have an incoming message from Coalition Command," Blake announced. His tentacles moved faster as he worked. "Priority level is the highest possible." The main screen lit up showing Admiral Kane. Her face looked tired and serious. "Captain Vex, you must go to coordinates 847.3 by 221.7 right away. There is a dead ship floating at the edge of human territory. This mission is classified at the highest level." Vex felt cold fear run through his body. The highest classification meant something terrible had happened. Admiral of the Council made it clear that no ships should go near human space. They forbade it after what happened at Kepler Station. "The Council decision still stands," Kane replied, with a sharp voice. "But we found one of our ships drifting at the boundary. It is the exploration vessel called Horizon's Call. She has been missing for 6 months." Everyone on the bridge stopped working when they heard that name. The Horizon's Call was a science ship that had ignored all the rules and tried to make peaceful contact with humans. Their last message was simple: making contact with human settlement. "We'll report what we find." After that, there was only silence. "Your job is to find any survivors and learn what happened to them," Admiral Kane continued. "But you must not cross into human space under any conditions. The barrier exists for very good reasons." When the transmission ended, Vex looked at the star charts again. Humans had been discovered 57 years ago. Back then, they were a young species living in just one star system. They seemed primitive and could barely travel between stars. The Coalition had planned to make contact and welcome them into the galactic community like they did with hundreds of other species. But something had changed everything. The first diplomatic mission had simply vanished without any trace. Then, the second mission disappeared. The third one never came back either. Each time, the ships would cross the boundary into human space and just stop existing. It was like they had never been built at all. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting the Horizon's Call," Roth whispered. "She is drifting dead in space just outside the boundary." Vex nodded grimly. "Take us to her position. Get the boarding team ready. We need to know what the humans did to that ship." As they moved closer to the dead vessel, one thought kept bothering him. If the Horizon's Call had never actually entered human space, then what had destroyed her? And why had she been allowed to drift back to the boundary like some kind of warning message? The answer would probably change everything they thought they knew about humanity. The Horizon's Call looked wrong as they approached. The ship was intact but completely dark. No lights showed in any of the windows. No power signatures came from the engines. It was floating in space like a dead whale in an ocean. "Boarding team report to the shuttle bay," Vex announced over the ship communications. "Full protective gear and maximum caution. We do not know what we will find over there." Chief Security Officer Nina led the boarding party. She was tough and experienced with many years of dangerous missions behind her. Medical Officer Paul followed with his scanning equipment ready. The rest of the team carried weapons and emergency supplies. "Captain, the ship appears to be completely dead," Nina reported as their shuttle approached. "No life signs, no power, no atmosphere. Whatever happened here was fast and complete." The shuttle docked with the Horizon's call through an emergency airlock. The boarding team put on their spacesuits and entered the dark ship. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, showing empty corridors and floating debris. Life support is completely offline, Paul reported. His scanner beeped as he took readings. The atmosphere was vented into space days ago. This was not a slow leak. Something caused explosive decompression throughout the entire ship. They moved through the corridors toward the bridge. The walls showed blast marks and scorch patterns. Pieces of equipment floated in the zero gravity. But the most disturbing thing was that there were no bodies anywhere. Captain, Nina called back to their ship. The crew is completely gone, all of them. But there are no signs that anyone boarded this ship. No blast holes in the hull. No evidence of fighting with energy weapons. What about the ship's computers? Vex asked. Can you access the logs? Nina made her way to the bridge where the command center flickered with dying emergency power. The main computer was barely working, but she managed to get into the data files. Found something important, she announced, downloading the final recordings. Now sending them back to you? On the Dominion's edge, the senior officers gathered around the display screen as the recovered files began to play. The image was fuzzy but clear enough to see Captain Mason of the Horizon's call making his final log entry. Personal log Captain Mason, day 847 of our mission. We have been watching human transmissions for weeks, trying to understand their technology before making contact. What we have learned is very troubling. The recording showed star charts and intercepted communications. The humans are not confined to their home system anymore. Our intelligence information was completely wrong. They have been expanding for many decades, and they are not the primitive species we thought they were. Vex leaned forward. His mandibles clicked with nervous energy. How many star systems do they control? The recording continued. At least 40 confirmed colonies and possibly many more. But that is not the worst discovery. We have intercepted military communications. They know we are here. They have known about the coalition for months. A cold feeling ran through everyone on the bridge. Blake's tentacles stopped moving completely. They have been watching us, Captain Mason's voice sounded afraid. Monitoring our ships as they approach, cataloging our technology and our weapons, and they have been preparing for something. The image shifted to show tactical displays that the Horizon's call had put together. Sensor readings revealed massive industrial complexes and shipyards. Defensive installations were scattered throughout human-controlled space. Preparing for what? Nina asked from the dead ship. The answer came in the final log entry. Captain Mason appeared on screen one last time. His face was pale with terror. They are not defending themselves from us. They are preparing to expand beyond their current borders. The humans are not hiding from the galaxy. They are getting ready to claim it. Static filled the screen for a moment before the recording started again. In the background, alarms began, making loud warning sounds on the Horizon's call. Contact. Multiple ships approaching from human space. They are not responding to our communication attempts. Mason's voice cracked with fear. My God, look at the size of those vessels. How did they build ships that large? The recording ended suddenly, leaving everyone in shocked silence. Sir, Roth spoke quietly. If the humans have been expanding for decades, then the 50 light-year boundary we established around them means absolutely nothing, Vex finished her sentence. We are not keeping them contained. They are allowing us to think we are. The implications were staggering. For 30 years, the Coalition had believed they were protecting the galaxy from human expansion. In reality, humanity had been quietly building an empire right under their noses. Captain, Blake's voice shook with fear. Incoming transmission from the edge of human space. It is directed specifically at us. The main screen flickered to life, showing a simple message written in perfect Coalition language. We need to talk. The meeting was arranged at neutral coordinates just outside the human boundary. Captain Vex had wanted to bring a full battle group, but Admiral Kane had said no. If they wanted us dead, we would already be dead, she had told him. the human ship that came out of the darkness was unlike anything in Coalition records. It was sleek and angular and absolutely massive. The vessel was 10 times larger than the Dominion's Edge. Its hull was painted matte black and seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. "They are asking permission to dock," Blake reported. His tentacles were shaking slightly. "They want to send a representative on board our ship." Vex had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, but nothing could have made him ready for the human who walked onto his bridge. She was tall with dark hair and eyes that seemed to notice everything at once. Her movements were smooth and confident and somehow dangerous. "Captain Vex," she said. Her voice showed no fear even though she was surrounded by armed aliens. "I am Director Walsh of the Terran Strategic Command. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Director," Vex replied carefully. He noticed how his crew stepped back from the human without thinking about it. "I believe we need to discuss what happened to the Horizons call," Walsh nodded, "among other things. But first let me ask you something. In all your years of service, how many species has the Coalition encountered that were actively hostile?" The question surprised him. Perhaps a dozen. "Most species are peaceful by nature." "Exactly. And the ones that were not peaceful you conquered or contained them. The Coalition has grown comfortable with being the dominant power in the galaxy." Walsh moved to the star chart. Her fingers traced the boundaries of human space. "But what happens when you encounter a species that is not only hostile, but actually capable of challenging your dominance?" "Are you threatening us?" Vex asked. His hand moved toward his weapon without thinking. "I am explaining why no one invades human space," Walsh replied calmly. "The Horizon's call was not destroyed by us, Captain. It was destroyed by what we have been fighting for the past 30 years. The bridge became silent except for the humming of the ship's engines." Walsh activated a holographic display showing star charts that extended far beyond Coalition space. 3 decades ago, we detected the first signs of their approach. An ancient species older than the Coalition and older than most civilizations in this galaxy. They call themselves the Devourers, and they do exactly what their name suggests. The display showed a vast dark region beyond human space. It was moving slowly, but steadily toward the galactic rim. They consume everything in their path, planets and stars and entire civilizations. Nothing stops them and nothing slows them down. They are heading directly for Coalition space. Vex stared at the display. His mind struggled to understand what this meant. "Why have you not warned us about this threat?" "Because you would have panicked. The Coalition response to any major threat is to form committees and debate options and ultimately reach compromises. We have studied your military records, Captain. You are not equipped for this kind of war." Walsh turned to face him directly. "So we made a different choice. We decided to become the shield that protects the galaxy from what is coming. And the ships that entered your space were compromised. The Devourers do not just consume matter and energy. They consume information and technology and even thoughts. Every ship that entered human space had been infected with their surveillance organisms. We had to destroy those vessels to prevent the contamination from spreading." The revelation hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Nina was the first to speak. "You are saying you killed Coalition citizens to protect us?" "I'm saying we killed Coalition citizens to protect everyone," Walsh corrected, "including all of you." She changed the display again, showing the current state of human space. The defensive installations they had seen in the Horizon's call logs were revealed to be something far more extensive. An entire civilization had been turned into a fortress. Every human colony and every ship and every citizen has been militarized for this conflict. We have sacrificed our peaceful expansion and our exploration and our dreams of joining the galactic community, all to buy time for the rest of the galaxy to prepare. "But the Coalition does not know," Vex said quietly. "They think you are the threat. And that is exactly what we want them to think. Because the moment the Coalition realizes the truth, they will try to help, and their help will get everyone killed." Walsh's expression became harder. "The Devourers will reach human space within the next 5 years. When they do, we will hold them for as long as we can, but eventually they will break through our defenses. She looked directly at Vex. When that happens, you will understand why no one invades human space. Because by then, there will not be any human space left to invade. The implications of what she was saying slowly sank in. Vex realized that humanity had been preparing for their own extinction for 30 years. They had turned their entire species into a military force designed to hold back an enemy that could not be defeated. How long can you hold them? He asked. Unknown. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10? It depends on how quickly they adapt to our weapons. The Devourers learn from every encounter. They become stronger and smarter with each battle. Walsh moved back to the display and highlighted several star systems. These are our outer colonies. When the Devourers reach them, we will evacuate what population we can and then destroy everything. Scorched earth tactics. We will not give them anything to consume or learn from. You would destroy your own worlds. We will destroy anything that gives them an advantage. Planets, ships, technology. People, everything. The cold matter-of-fact way she said it made Vex realize just how far humanity had fallen from the peaceful species the Coalition had first discovered. They had become something else entirely, a weapon forged specifically to fight an unwinnable war. What do you want from us? Vex asked. Time. When our defenses finally fail, we need the Coalition to be ready. Study the data we are giving you. Learn about the Devourers. Prepare your fleets and your worlds for what is coming. Walsh handed him a data storage device. Everything we know about them is on there. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics, how they fight and how they think. Use it wisely. And what about your people? What about humanity? We'll cease to exist, Walsh said without hesitation. When the final battle comes, every human will die fighting. That is the price we pay to give the rest of the galaxy a chance. She moved toward the exit but stopped and turned back. Captain, there is something else you need to understand. The Devourers are not just another hostile species. They are an extinction-level threat to all intelligent life in this galaxy. If we fail to stop them here, everyone dies. Every species, every world. Every trace of civilization will be consumed. Then why not work together from the beginning? Why not tell the Coalition the truth? Because the Coalition would have tried to negotiate. They would have sent diplomats and peace envoys and cultural exchange missions. The Devourers do not negotiate, Captain. They do not communicate, they consume. The only language they understand is violence. Walsh paused at the airlock. Humanity learned that less than 30 years ago when they consumed our first colony. 3 billion people gone in a matter of hours. That is when we decided to become what we needed to become to fight them. As the human ship disappeared back into the darkness, Vex stood on his bridge holding the data device. Everything he thought he knew about humanity had been wrong. They were not a threat to be contained. They were guardians who had sacrificed everything to protect a galaxy that did not even know it needed protection. Sir Blake said quietly, "Should we report this to Coalition Command?" Vex looked at the boundary markers showing the edge of human space. Somewhere beyond that invisible line, an entire species was preparing to die for people they had never met. "No," he said finally, "not yet. We need to verify this information first." But even as he said it, Vex knew that everything Walsh had told them was true. The humans had been fighting a secret war for 30 years, and they were losing. 2 years had passed since the meeting with Director Walsh. Captain Vex was now Admiral Vex, and he stood in the Coalition war room watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The data device Walsh had given him contained information that had kept Coalition scientists busy for months. Everything she had told them was proving to be true. Long-range sensors were detecting something impossible. Entire star systems along the galactic rim were simply disappearing. Not destroyed by supernovas or black holes, but consumed. One day they would be there showing normal stellar activity. The next day there would be nothing but empty space where vibrant worlds had once existed. "Sir," called out his aide, Lieutenant Torres, "we are receiving a transmission from human space. It is Director Walsh. The woman who appeared on screen looked like she had aged 20 years in just 2. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Her eyes held the weight of impossible decisions and constant warfare. Admiral Vex, she began without any greeting. The outer ring has fallen. 4 human colonies are gone. The Devourers are adapting faster than we thought they would. Behind her, Vex could see the organized chaos of a military command center under siege. Humans moved with desperate efficiency, coordinating defenses across dozens of worlds. Battle damage was visible everywhere. Sparks flew from damaged equipment and the lights flickered constantly. How long do you have? Vex asked. 6 months, maybe less. The Devourers have evolved new forms. Massive ships that can consume entire fleets in minutes. Our conventional weapons are barely slowing them down anymore. Walsh paused, and for the first time since he had known her, Vex saw doubt in her expression. We need to discuss contingencies. When the human defense line fails, they will reach coalition space within a year. What do you need from us? Nothing, Walsh replied firmly. I need you to understand what happens next. When our final line falls, every human ship and every human weapon and every human life will be deployed in a single coordinated strike. We call it the Pyrrhic Protocol. The tactical display shifted, showing the human defensive network. Vex realized with growing horror that every human installation and every colony and every ship was rigged with the same devastating technology. You are going to destroy everything, he whispered. We are going to create a firewall. A region of space so devastated that even the Devourers cannot cross it. It will buy the coalition time to evacuate the outer worlds and prepare defenses. And the human population, Walsh's expression never changed, will cease to exist. Every human in the galaxy will die to ensure the rest of you have a chance to survive. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Vex stared at the tactical display, finally understanding the true scope of humanity's sacrifice. They had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. An entire species planning their own extinction to save everyone else. Sir, Torres spoke quietly. Incoming. Reports from the front lines. The human fleet is engaging the Devourers at the Beta Centauri system. The battle feeds showed a conflict beyond anything in Coalition history. Massive Devourer ships, each the size of a small moon, tore through human defensive lines with terrifying efficiency. But the humans fought back with a ferocity that defied comprehension. They are ramming them, observed Captain Nina, who now served as Vex's tactical officer. Human ships are deliberately colliding with Devourer vessels, not ramming. Vex corrected as he studied the tactical data. Delivering warheads. They are using their own ships as guided missiles. For 3 days, the battle raged across multiple star systems. The humans threw everything they had at the Devourers. Suicide attacks and experimental weapons, and even controlled stellar detonations. When the Beta Centauri system finally fell, they had destroyed more Devourer ships than any previous engagement in the war, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The entire human defense fleet, over 10,000 ships, was gone, destroyed in 3 days of desperate fighting. Admiral, Torres reported. Transmission from Director Walsh. She is requesting immediate contact. Walsh appeared on screen one final time, broadcasting from what looked like a bunker deep underground. Explosions echoed in the background and the lights flickered constantly from the impacts above. Admiral, the Pyrrhic Protocol is now active. All human colonies are beginning evacuation of non-essential personnel to predetermined coordinates. We estimate 48 hours before final implementation. Director Vex began, but Walsh cut him off. There is something else you need to know. The Devourers are not just consuming matter and energy. They are learning. Every human ship they have destroyed and every colony they have consumed has taught them about coalition technology and coalition tactics and coalition weaknesses. The implications were staggering. They will be prepared for us. Yes, but they will not be prepared for what we are about to do. No species in galactic history has ever chosen extinction over defeat. When the Pyrrhic protocol activates, it will create a phenomenon the Devourers have never encountered. Walsh's image flickered as another explosion rocked her position. Remember, U.S. Admiral, remember that humanity chose to die so that others might live. The transmission ended, and within hours long-range sensors detected the first signs of the Pyrrhic protocol. Human star systems began to destabilize as their defensive installations activated in sequence. What followed was the most spectacular and terrifying display of destruction in recorded history. Humanity had turned their entire civilization into a weapon, and they were about to fire it. The first system to go was Alpha Centauri. The humans had somehow weaponized their own star, causing it to go supernova in a carefully controlled detonation. The explosion sent shock waves rippling through hyperspace that could be detected from thousands of light years away. "Status report," Vex called out to his crew. "Human systems are detonating in sequence," Torres reported. "They are creating a cascade effect across their entire territory. One by one, the stars that had warmed human worlds for 30 years were being extinguished. But these were not random destructions. They were precisely calculated to create something unprecedented in galactic history." "Admiral," called out Navigation Officer Roth, "the stellar detonations are creating gravitational anomalies. Space itself is warping around the former human territories." What humanity had done was beyond anything in coalition science. They had turned their entire civilization into a massive gravitational weapon. They were creating a region of space so unstable that nothing could cross it. "Not even the Devourers," Sir Torres announced. "Incoming transmission. It is from the Terran Resolve, Director Walsh's flagship." The image that appeared on screen showed Walsh standing on a bridge that was clearly falling apart around her. Behind her, human officers worked frantically at their stations as the ship bucked and rolled from gravitational stress. Pieces of the ceiling were falling down, and electrical fires burned in the background. "Admiral Vex," Walsh's voice was calm despite the chaos around her. "The protocol is proceeding as planned. We estimate the barrier will hold for approximately 50 years. Director, there has to be another way." "There is not," Walsh interrupted. "The Devourers are already adapting to our conventional weapons, but they cannot adapt to the laws of physics. The gravitational barrier we are creating will be impassable for at least 5 decades. The transmission flickered as another wave of stellar destruction rippled across human space. "Use that time wisely, Admiral. Study the Devourers. Learn their weaknesses, because when the barrier fails, they will still be waiting on the other side." "What about evacuation?" Vex asked desperately. "Surely some humans can escape." Walsh smiled. "Sadly, every human in the galaxy is participating in the protocol. We made that choice 30 years ago when we decided to become the shield instead of seeking help from others." Behind her, the bridge lights began to fail completely. "Emergency. Power was clearly running out. The Terran Resolve is the last ship. When we detonate, the barrier will be complete." "Director," Vex said. His voice was thick with emotion, "the galaxy will remember what you did. Just make sure they learn from it," Walsh replied. "The Devourers can be defeated, but not through conventional warfare. They can be outsmarted and outmaneuvered and ultimately overcome. Humanity proved that. We held them for 30 years with inferior technology and superior strategy." The transmission began to break up as the Terran Resolve was caught in the gravitational distortions created by the protocol. "Tell them," Walsh's voice crackled through the static, "tell them that humanity died as it lived, on our own terms." The screen went dark as the final human ship detonated, completing the gravitational barrier that would protect the galaxy for the next 50 years. Admiral Vex stood in the Coalition war room, staring at the tactical display that now showed a vast region of warped space where human civilization had once existed. The gravitational barrier was holding exactly as Director Walsh had promised. The Devourers were trapped on the other side, unable to cross the unstable region that humanity had created with their own destruction. Sir Torres reported quietly. "Long-range sensors confirm the barrier is stable. The Devourers have stopped their advance." They appear to be studying the gravitational anomalies. Vex nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. They had turned their entire species into a weapon that could only be fired once. They had chosen extinction over defeat and death over surrender. Admiral Roth called out, "We are receiving transmissions from across Coalition space. The other species are asking what happened to the humans." Vex knew that the story he was about to tell would reshape galactic civilization forever. The Coalition had always believed they were the protectors of the galaxy. They had seen themselves as the guardians of peace and the defenders of the innocent. But humanity had shown them what true sacrifice looked like. "Prepare a full briefing for the Council," he ordered. "Every species needs to know what the humans did for us. They need to understand the price that was paid." In the days that followed, the news spread across Coalition space like wildfire. The story of humanity's sacrifice became legend almost immediately. Some species refused to believe it. Others were overcome with grief for a people they had never truly known. But all of them understood one thing. The galaxy owed its existence to a species that no longer existed. The Council of Species met in emergency session to discuss the implications. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to debate what should be done next. The humans had bought them 50 years, but what would happen when the barrier failed? "We must prepare for war," declared Senator Krill of the Androni Republic. "The humans have shown us what the Devourers are capable of. We cannot make their sacrifice meaningless." "But how do we fight an enemy that consumes everything?" asked Ambassador Turn of the Crystal Worlds. The humans had 30 years to prepare, and they could only delay the inevitable. Vex stood before the assembled delegates. "The humans did more than delay them. They gave us the greatest gift possible, knowledge. We have 30 years of combat. Data from their war. We know how the Devourers fight and what their weaknesses are." He activated a holographic display showing the information from Walsh's data device. "The Devourers are powerful, but they are not invincible. They rely on overwhelming force and rapid consumption. But they can be slowed down with the right tactics." The data showed battle after battle where human forces had managed to destroy Devourer ships through clever strategy and sacrifice. The humans had learned that the alien invaders could not adapt quickly to completely new forms of attack. "Look at this engagement," Vex pointed to a tactical record. A single human destroyer managed to destroy a Devourer capital ship by hiding inside an asteroid field and detonating the asteroids in sequence. The Devourers had never encountered that tactic before. "But they learned from it," pointed out General Rex of the Titan Defense Force. "The next time humans tried that strategy, it failed." "Exactly," Vex replied. "Which means we need to be constantly innovative. We cannot rely on conventional military thinking. We need to think like the humans did. Every battle must be fought with new tactics that the Devourers have never seen before." The debate continued for days. Some species wanted to flee to other galaxies. Others proposed building their own gravitational barriers. A few suggested trying to negotiate with the Devourers despite all evidence that they could not be reasoned with. In the end, they decided on a course of action that honored humanity's sacrifice. The Coalition would spend the next 50 years preparing for war, but not in the way they had always prepared before. They would study human tactics and learn from human strategy. They would become what the humans had become, a civilization dedicated entirely to the defense of life itself. The humans called it the Pyrrhic Protocol, Vex explained to the assembled council. They understood that some victories can only be won through complete sacrifice. We must be prepared to make the same choice if necessary. Construction began immediately on new types of weapons and defenses. Every species contributed their best technology and their brightest minds. The Crystal Worlds shared their knowledge of gravitational manipulation. The Androni Republic provided their expertise in stellar engineering. The Titan Defense Force contributed their advanced military strategies, but the most important contribution came from an unexpected source. The archives of human space contained thousands of years of military history from Earth, ancient battles, and forgotten wars that showed how humans had always fought against impossible odds. "Look at this," Torres said as he studied the human historical records. "They have been preparing for this kind of war their entire existence. Every conflict in their history taught them something about fighting superior enemies." The records showed battle after battle where human forces had defeated larger and more advanced armies through cunning and determination. From ancient conflicts with primitive weapons to space battles with advanced technology, humans had always found a way to win against overwhelming odds. They did not become warriors because of the Devourers, Vex realized. They were already warriors. The Devourers just gave them an enemy worthy of their skills. As the years passed, the Coalition transformed itself. Peaceful species learned to build weapons. Scientific expeditions became military reconnaissance missions. Trade routes were converted into supply lines for the coming war, but the most significant change was in how the different species saw themselves. For the first time in galactic history, they truly understood that they were all part of something larger. The petty conflicts and territorial disputes that had marked coalition politics for centuries simply disappeared. "The humans united us," Ambassador Turn observed during one council session. "Not through diplomacy or negotiation, but through their sacrifice. They showed us what it means to put the survival of others before your own interests." 25 years into the preparation period, the first signs appeared that the Devourers were testing the barrier. Gravitational fluctuations indicated that they were probing for weaknesses. Long-range sensors detected massive ship movements on the other side of the distorted space. "They are learning," Vex reported to the Council, just as Director Walsh warned. "Yes, they would. They are studying the barrier and developing ways to overcome it." "How much time do we have?" asked Senator Krill. "Unknown. The barrier is holding, but it is showing signs of stress." The humans estimated 50 years, but that was based on the Devourers remaining static. If they are actively working to break through, it could fail much sooner. The news sent a wave of panic through Coalition space. Some species began making preparations to flee the galaxy. Others demanded immediate strikes against the Devourers while they were still trapped behind the barrier, but Vex remembered Walsh's final words. The humans had told them to use the time wisely, to study their enemy and learn their weaknesses, to become something more than they had been before. "We are not ready," he told the Council, "but we will be." The humans did not sacrifice everything just to buy us time to panic. They gave us the opportunity to become worthy of their sacrifice. The Coalition had 25 years left to prepare, 25 years to become what humanity had become. A force capable of standing against the darkness and protecting all life in the galaxy. The clock was ticking and the barrier was weakening. But for the first time since the Devourers had been discovered, the Coalition had hope. They had learned from the best teachers possible. A species that had chosen extinction over defeat and had shown the galaxy what true courage looked like. The humans were gone, but their legacy lived on. In every weapon that was built and every strategy that was developed, in every species that had learned to put the survival of others before their own safety. When the barrier finally failed, the Coalition would be ready. Not because they were stronger than the humans had been, but because they had learned to think like humans, to fight like humans, to sacrifice like humans. The galaxy would survive because humanity had taught them how. 47 years had passed since the Pyrrhic Protocol. Admiral Vex was now an old man, but he still stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the gravitational barrier that protected the galaxy. The distorted space was showing more signs of stress each day. Cracks were appearing in the fabric of reality itself as the Devourers worked tirelessly to break through. "Sir," reported Captain Torres, who had been promoted to serve as Vex's second-in-command, "gravitational fluctuations are increasing. The barrier is definitely weakening." Vex nodded grimly. They had known this day would come. The humans had bought them 50 years, but it looked like they would only get 47. Still, it had been enough time to transform the Coalition into something completely different. Every species in the galaxy now served in the military. Children learned tactics alongside mathematics. Civilian ships were built with weapon systems. Entire planets had been converted into fortress worlds designed to slow down the Devourer advance. Status report on the fleet, Vex ordered. All ships are in position, Torres replied. 12,000 vessels from 87 species. Every available warship in Coalition space. It was an impressive force, but Vex knew it would not be enough. The humans had fought the Devourers for 30 years with advanced technology and superior strategy. They had ultimately lost despite their incredible sacrifice. The Coalition fleet was larger but less experienced and less united in purpose. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Dana, "sensors are detecting movement beyond the barrier. Massive energy signatures approaching from the Devourer side." This was it. After 47 years of preparation, the final battle was about to begin. Vex activated the fleet-wide communications system to address every ship in the Coalition force. "This is Admiral Vex to all vessels. Today we face the same enemy that destroyed humanity. We fight not just for our own survival, but to honor the sacrifice of those who gave everything to protect us. Remember their example, remember their courage, and remember that sometimes the greatest victory requires the ultimate price." The barrier began to collapse in sections. Reality twisted and warped as the gravitational distortions finally gave way under the constant pressure from the other side. And through the gaps came the Devourers. The enemy ships were exactly as the human records had described them. Massive organic-looking vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each one was the size of a small moon, and they moved with disturbing grace through space. "My God," whispered Navigation Officer Roth. "There are so many of them." The Devourer fleet stretched beyond the horizon. Hundreds of capital ships supported by thousands of smaller vessels. It was a force designed to consume entire star systems, and they were heading directly for the heart of Coalition space. "All ships engage," Vex ordered. "Remember the human tactics. Hit and run attacks. No prolonged engagements. Make them work for every victory." The Coalition fleet scattered into small groups just as the humans had taught them. Instead of meeting the Devourers in a massive conventional battle, they broke apart into countless smaller engagements. Each group used different tactics and strategies to confuse and delay the enemy advance. The first wave of attacks caught the Devourers off guard. Crystal World ships used gravitational manipulation to redirect asteroids into the enemy formations. Androni vessels detonated their own power cores to create massive electromagnetic pulses. Titan Defense Force cruisers used stealth technology to strike at vulnerable points, then disappear before the enemy could respond. "It is working," Torres reported with excitement. "We have destroyed 17 enemy ships with minimal losses." But Vex knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers would adapt quickly to these tactics, just as they had adapted to human strategies. The Coalition needed to constantly evolve their approach to stay ahead of enemy learning. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Implement Protocol 7. Switch to Phase 2 tactics immediately." The fleet reorganized on the fly. Ships that had been using stealth attacks switched to direct assault. Vessels that had been fighting in groups broke apart into individual units. The constant changes in strategy kept the Devourers guessing and prevented them from developing effective countermeasures. For 6 hours, the battle raged across multiple star systems. The Coalition forces fought with a desperation and creativity that surprised even themselves. They used every trick the humans had developed and invented new ones on the spot, but slowly the Devourers began to adapt. Their response times improved and their tactical awareness increased. The alien ships started anticipating Coalition strategies and developing countermeasures in real time. "We are losing ships faster than we can replace them," Torres reported. "The enemy is learning our patterns." Vex had been expecting this. The human records showed that the Devourers always adapted eventually. No matter how creative the tactics or how desperate the fighting, they always found ways to overcome their opponents. "Signal the reserve fleet," he ordered. "It is time for the final phase." What happened next was something the Devourers had never encountered in their millions of years of conquest. Instead of retreating or surrendering, the Coalition fleet began implementing what they called the Humanity Protocol. Every ship in the fleet was equipped with the same technology the humans had used in their final battle. Weapons that could destabilize stars and create gravitational anomalies. But unlike the humans, the Coalition was not going to use these weapons to create a barrier. They were going to use them as the ultimate sacrifice play. All ships, this is Admiral Vex, he announced on an open channel that he knew the Devourers would intercept. We have learned from the best teachers possible. A species that showed us what it means to choose principle over survival. Today we honor their memory. One by one, Coalition ships began detonating their stellar manipulation devices. But instead of targeting their own star systems, they aimed the weapons directly at the Devourer fleet. The explosions created chains of gravitational collapse that consumed enemy ships by the dozens, sir, Torres called out. The enemy is retreating. They are pulling back beyond the range of our weapons. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourers had been forced to retreat from a battle. The Coalition fleet had lost over half their ships, but they had achieved something no species had ever accomplished. They had made the Devourers afraid. Signal all remaining vessels, Vex ordered. Pursue and harass, but do not engage in direct combat. We need to keep them off balance while the second wave arrives. The Coalition had learned the most important lesson from humanity's sacrifice. The Devourers could be defeated, but only through constant innovation and willingness to pay any price for victory. They could not be allowed to settle into patterns or develop comprehensive countermeasures over the following months. The war continued. Across the galaxy, the Coalition used every resource and every strategy they could develop. Some battles were won through clever tactics. Others required terrible sacrifices. But slowly, steadily, they began to push the Devourers back. Sir, Torres reported during one engagement. Enemy fleet movements suggest they are preparing to withdraw from this sector entirely. It was happening. The impossible was actually happening. The Devourers were losing a war for the first time in their existence. Not because they had encountered superior technology or overwhelming force, but because they had encountered something they could not understand or adapt to, a species that fought like humans. A civilization that had learned to value principles over survival and had been taught by the greatest teachers in galactic history. Signal Coalition Command, Vex ordered. The enemy is in full retreat. We are pursuing beyond the former human boundary. As the Coalition fleet crossed into what had once been human space, Vex thought about Director Walsh and all the humans who had died to make this moment possible. They had not lived to see their sacrifice vindicated, but their legacy lived on in every tactical decision and every strategic choice. The Devourers were not defeated yet. It would take years more of fighting to push them completely out of the galaxy, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. They had lost the initiative and the psychological advantage they had held for millions of years. Admiral, Torres said quietly, incoming transmission from the lead Devourer ship. They want to communicate. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourers were trying to make contact with their enemies. Vex smiled grimly. Tell them what Director Walsh would have told them. We do not negotiate with species that consume others. We fight them until they leave or until they die. The galaxy would be free because humanity had taught them how to be free. The humans were gone, but their spirit lived on in every species. That had learned to fight like humans and think like humans and sacrifice like humans. In the end, no one invaded human space because there was no human space left to invade. Only a monument to the greatest sacrifice in galactic history and a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory requires the ultimate price. But humanity's true monument was not the gravitational barrier they had created. It was the galaxy they had saved and the species they had taught to be better than they ever thought possible. The war was ending and the galaxy was free. Because once upon a time a species called humanity had chosen to die so that others might live.